self Spring Data JPA or YouTube, so Mintra. Hello everyone, very warm welcome to Think Constructive. I am Isha. In this session, I will be talking about data persistence for Spring Boot applications using the Spring Data JPA and MySQL databases. In this session, I will be giving you quick overview for all these three technologies, and then I will be telling you all the required dependencies for connecting Spring Boot application to the databases, and we'll be testing it using MySQL Workbench also. So stay connected, watch the session till the end so that you don't miss upon anything. All right, so let's have a quick overview of Spring Boot first. Spring Boot. Spring Boot is a framework which is very helpful to quickly build any Java application and make it production ready. You can easily create any standalone production grade Spring based applications here because it comes already embedded with Tomcat, Jetty and Undertow servers. It also provides the starter dependencies, so you can easily configure the dependencies and make your system ready. You can easily configure third-party libraries in any Spring Boot application and make it ready to work. It also supports a lot of production ready features such as health checks or metrics, etc., which will make your application self-sufficient. All right, now let's talk about a Spring Data JPA. So what is a Spring Data JPA? It is a part of a Spring Data family which makes it easy to implement JPA based repositories. That means earlier when we used to do this process, that means to connect application with databases, the process was little longer and cumbersome. But after the Spring Data JPA, the developer's life has become really very easy. What developer need to do? They just need to do the configuration, that means include dependencies and write repository interfaces. And if they are supposed to write any custom finder methods, that they need to write, that's all. The Spring will provide the implementation automatically. They need not to write those detailed implementations. So things have become very easy for developer to do after Spring Data JPA. That is where I'm using Spring Data JPA in today's demonstration. All right. Now let's have a quick look on Spring Boot and Spring Data JPA important annotations which we will be using in today's demonstration. So what we'll be using? Definitely the first annotation, Spring Boot application, which is a combination of enable auto configuration, component scan and configuration, because Spring Boot application is the Kickstarter for any Spring Boot application. So this is the point from where any Spring Boot application gets started. All right, another annotation is at entity annotation. This will tell that this class, this particular class, wherever this annotation is being used, is the entity class, and this thing will be stored in the database. All right, at autowired annotation, this wherever autowired annotation will be used, this will inject bean dependencies in that particular class. At override, to override any method. At ID, to indicate that this particular field is the ID field. At generated value, to generate values automatically. All right, so all these things we'll be seeing in a while. So stay tuned, watch the session till the end so you don't miss upon anything. Now let's have a quick look on MySQL Overview. So MySQL is open source RDBMS. That is where it is very popular, because MySQL provides a very rich set of features and variety of features which are required to persist data in database and play around with that data. All right, and it is open source. That means it is free to use, easy to use, and it is very reliable and scalable. And MySQL, since it is free, so any small project can pick up this and use it. And also any large enterprise level application. So it's not like that it is free, so only small projects should be using it. No, it's very feature rich and support is very good. That is where any large enterprise level applications also uses it. For example, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So those are big names, big companies using data day in and day out are using MySQL. So now you can understand how important and how good MySQL is. So this is the database we'll be using in our demonstration. All right, now let's see what we'll be building in this session. So we will be building online store information in this session. So for this online store, we will be building an entity class And what will be the properties of that online store entity class? It will contain a store ID, store name, store detail, and store phone number. And here is the data set which we will be entering via Spring Boot application in the database. All right, so I will start building the Spring Boot application, as I said, right from the scratch. So I will be using Spring Initializer to build up the application, or rather a Spring Boot application from the beginning. I'll show you the dependencies which you should be selecting in order to build this kind of application. All right, and then we will be evolving that Spring application to store the data in the database, followed by certain operations. I'll switch to the browser window now and will open a Spring Initializer from there. All right, so here is a browser window. I'll just open a Spring Initializer. All right, so I'm on a Spring Initializer site. I will take this project as a Maven project. If you wish to use Gradle, you can use that also. Language as Java. Default Spring Boot version. I'll change the group ID to, let's say, com.thinkconstructive. Okay, artifact. Let's say I'm building a database application. So I wish to give the name as DB demo. Okay, demo project, or rather I will say DB demo project for a Spring Boot application. Okay, packaging, let's have it as jar Java. Let's say the default 17 I'll go ahead with. Now the important part is I will start adding dependencies. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm going to use a Spring Data JPA, so I should be using JPA dependency. Okay, I'll select that. Then I would add another dependency. Let's say I'm using my database as MySQL, so I will just say MySQL driver. So these two important dependency I should have in order to build the Spring Boot application with the Spring Data JPA and MySQL. All right, so these are the must-have dependency. After doing so, I will say generate. It has generated the dbdemo.zip. You can see it here. Okay, I'll quickly extract this zip and load it in the IntelliJ editor. All right, you can use any Java editor of your choice. So here my project is loaded in IntelliJ editor. Here we can see a src folder with main Java resources. Okay, with application.properties, and DB demo application is annotated with Spring Boot application. So this is my Spring Boot application. Here is the application.properties, which is by default empty. And let's have a quick look on pom.xml also, because that is also very important for us to see. So here we can see Spring Boot starter parent dependency, which will tell this is the Spring Boot application, followed by the group ID, artifact ID, whatever we have given. Okay, the description, Java version, you can notice we had selected 17, so same is given here. Now, the two important dependencies we should look at is the Spring Boot starter data JPA. This is what we wanted to use, the Spring Data JPA. So this is the dependency for that. And another important dependency is MySQL connector Java, because we are using MySQL database to persist data. So this is another dependency which is the must-have dependency in pom.xml. All right, so now this is a basic Spring Boot application with all the required dependencies. Okay, now the next step is to give the MySQL specific configuration to our Spring application so that it should know where to look for database. That means the database connection string, database username, password, all those important stuffs we should be configuring in the Spring Boot application. Where should we configure all that? The place is this, application.properties. So this is the important place where the entire important key configuration of a Spring Boot application should be given. Okay. So this is the bare minimum basic configuration which you should be giving for configuring the MySQL database in a Spring Boot application. All right, how you should be doing? You should be configuring the property spring.datasource.url. Okay, this is the one, is equal to the connection string. So connection string will start with JDBC colon MySQL, because this is the DB we are using, then colon double /, then the IP where the database exists. In our case, it is localhost because my DB is running on my same laptop, same machine, which I am using to build this application. So I am giving as localhost. You can give any IP where the DB exists. Then the port. So 3306 is the default port of MySQL. So the same port I have used. So I have given 3306 port number here. You can give the port number wherever your DB is actually listening. All right, then forward slash, then schema name. So this is something very important. You should know that a schema should have been created. Okay, this schema should be existing, otherwise this won't be able to establish the connection. You can have a already created a schema name here and then use SSL. I have given as false. If you are using SSL certificate, you can give here true, and then down the line you should be giving the certificate path also. Then after that you should be giving Spring data source username. So username you should be writing, in my case I have taken it as root. You can have any username which is already created in the MySQL database here and can give the username here. Then a Spring data source password, and you can give the password whichever is configured for you. All right, after that, this is the Spring JPA Hibernate DDL auto. I have given it as create. So what this create will do, every time whenever this Spring application will come up, if the table is already existing, it will drop and recreate a new table with new set of records for you. If you don't want to drop the table every time, you can replace this create with update also. Okay, so I am proceeding with create. If you, in your case, depending upon your project requirement, you can have update also. All right, this is the bare minimum configuration you should be doing to connect your Spring Boot application to the database. All right, I'll now switch to Workbench and we'll show you this test users schema. All right. So here is a MySQL Workbench, and you can notice this test users schema is existing here. Okay, and this same schema I'm using for this demo. If you don't have any schema, or if you want to use different schema for this demo, you can create one. All right, and can show you some tables are existing here, but our store table is not existing. That should be created with my Spring Boot application. All right, let's first create the entity, which is my store info. Okay, store information entity. All right. Okay, since we know this is my entity class, so I'll first put the annotation entity here. Okay, that's how the Spring will know this is the entity class. Okay, you can notice JavaX persistence package is imported here. All right, so let us start creating the properties of this store information. So first one is ID. So let me just take it as integer store ID. Okay, and this is the ID field, so I want to put the annotation as ID so that Spring application will know this is the ID field, and I want ID to be auto generated. So what do? I will just say generated value, and I will put strategy is equal to generation type auto. All right, so this is my first property. I will just create another property which is my store name. So I will just put it as a string store name. Okay. Oh, type. Then another one is store details. That should again be string. Store detail, and then store phone number. Again, phone number I'm taking as string. All right. So these are the four properties which we are using. Let us create the constructors. I'll just go to generate. I will say constructor. First, I will create empty constructor. I will correct its positioning. Okay. Then we'll create parameterized constructor. I'll select all 4 properties and we'll get the constructor for this. We'll again sort out the positioning stuff. There you go. Okay, now let us create getter and setter for all these 4 properties. I'll just say getter and setter. We'll select all properties. Okay. All right. We'll again fix the positioning stuff. Some positionings. Come here. Okay, so I have got my entity class created with the ID field annotated and given its generated value also, which will create ID numbers automatically. Okay, I'll show you that I'm not giving any ID numbers, but it is getting registered in the database. Okay, so my entity class is ready. Next step, I'll be creating the repository interface. All right, how do I do that? I will just say repository dot store information repository. All right, I will just change this class to interface. Okay, so here is my repository interface. What it should do, it should extend CRUD repository. Okay, it should extend CRUD repository, and here I should be giving the parameter. So CRUD repository here will be taking 2 data types. First one should be my entity class, for which I am extending it. So what is my entity class name? That is store information. Okay, and the second parameter is the data type of ID, which is my integer. Okay, so here for this store ID, I have marked it as ID. This ID parameter data type will go here. All right, here I can write any custom method which I want to implement, let's say for fetching any details. So let's say I want to return a list of store information. Okay, when I will say find by name, find by, rather I should say store name. Okay, because this name mapping should happen. And the camel casing must also be followed. Okay, and what should it take? It should take string name, let's say. Okay, next method I would want to have is, let's say, find by store phone number. Okay, and here the string of phone number should be passed. Okay, let me just match this name, store phone number. Store phone number. Perfect. Okay, so now you get the point. This should match with the property name. All right. Okay, so these 2 extra methods I would want to have. I have given, although this repository already provides us a lot. I'll show you in a while how. Now we will go to DB demo application. In this DB demo application, we will do some changes. Okay, so first thing, we will implement command line runner here. Implements command line runner. Okay, why do we do that? Because I want to override the run method. Public void run string. Okay, I want to override this method. That is where I have implemented command line runner, because I would want to call the data saving methods or fetching methods right from this run method. So I should annotate it with override. Okay, and my data persistence or fetching data code will go here. All right. Before that, what I need to do, I need to auto-wire repositories here. Which repository? Which we have just now created, my store information repository. So I'll just copy this name and we'll create the instance of this. Okay. I should put auto-wired annotation here. Then only Spring will know that this bean already exists. All right, so I have put the auto-wired here and a store information repository instance is created. Now with the help of this instance, we can save data in the database. In this case, MySQL database. Okay, how do we do that? I'll just show you. This is my repository instance dot. For saving or for putting the data in the database, I will call save method. Okay, and inside the save method, the complete entity will go. Okay, that means the record which I would want to save should go in here. Okay, so what do? I'll first create the record here. What is my entity? Store information. Okay, we'll just say store information 1 is equal to new store information and its parameters. Okay, okay, just one change I should be doing in the entity. I don't need this store ID here in the constructor. Why? Because we are using auto generation mechanism for this store ID. So I'm just removing it. All right. So in the constructor, we should be passing 3 parameters: store name, store detail, and store phone number. Okay. So we'll come back here. I'll just say store name, Amazon, all types of bags are available here. All right. Let me just shift it to next line so that it is more readable. And then the next parameter is phone number. My phone number, let's say XXXXX. Okay, so this is first store information, and this record I will pass here. Okay, so first store information will be saved after execution of this line. Okay, now what do? I would want to query this. Okay, how do I query that? I will just say my store information repository dot, let's say I want to find by store name. I will just pass the store name here, which is Amazon. Okay, what it will return? It will return the list of store. It can be one, it can be many. In this case, it will be one only, but it can be many also. So I need to iterate it in order to get it printed. Okay, so I'll make use of for each. In this for each, I will be, let's say, passing the value and I want to get it printed. So I will just say system.out.println and here I will print the value. Okay, done. All right, so now let us execute this and see the results. Currently, I will just show you MySQL Workbench once again, and you can notice there is no table as of now called as store information. So this is my schema which we are using. I will refresh. You can see only 2 tables, user and hibernate sequence. Okay. Let's now execute this Spring Boot application and see what happens. Let's spend some time here. We can see what happens. My JPA entity manager is initialized. DB demo application is started. All right. I have got this entity information printed here. Now that we have executed this application, let us go and check the database. What happens here? In the database, when I will refresh now, I've got a store underscore information table, and when I will say select rows from this table, what am I getting? I'm getting a store ID as 1, store detail as all types of bags are available here, store name Amazon, and a store phone number as XXXX here. That means the data which I wanted to store in MySQL database is stored here. All right, we'll now do some more stuffs here. First, let us fix this. What I am getting here, something like this, but what I want is a completely readable record which we have just now persisted. Okay, so let us go back to the entity class and do a bit change there. What did we miss here? We missed to create its toString method. So I'll select these attributes and we'll say generate toString. Okay, I'll generate its toString method. Okay, again we'll fix up its positioning. Let's say I'll place it here. Okay, so now when I will query this, I should be getting information something like this. Okay, so now let's again execute this application and see whether this issue is fixed or not. Notice some change? See, store information, store ID 1, store name Amazon, store detail this, and store phone number XXXX. This is what we tried to persist. So it is persisted and we are able to fetch this record, these values from the database and print it properly here. All right. So don't miss overriding toString method. That will be very useful. Okay, so now moving forward, since we targeted to persist 4 records, just now we have persisted only 1. So I'll now create 4 records and we'll save them. Okay. I'll just paste and we'll do the required changes. So I'll just make it as 2, and what is the second value I wanted to insert? Flipkart, and all books are available here. So I'll just change the store name to Flipkart. We'll say all types of books are available here, and we'll change the phone number to bye. All right. The next value is Meesho. All fashion items are available here. Okay. So third record. Meesho. All fashion items are available here. And what is the phone number? ZZZ. All right. And then the fourth one. So it will be 4. And Myntra, all fashion items are again available here. So I will just say store name as Myntra. All description for these two are same. So I will just paste it here. Okay. And its phone number is AA. Okay. So here are 4 records we have created. And we will save these 4 records in the database one by one. Okay. So store information 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will, let us change it to 3. That is better. Okay. So all 4 information we have stored in the database. Okay. We have done find by store name for Amazon. Okay. Let us do a find by store detail. That will be our next query. Okay. How do we do that? I will just do changes here. I will just say find by store. What is my repository method? Okay, find by store detail we haven't yet created. So let us create one. That will be good. So we will do 3 find queries. Okay. So store detail. Okay. And here again, detail. Okay. Find by store detail. So this is the query method we have. And what do? We will put it here. Find by store detail, and let us copy this. If you notice, the same store detail exists for 2 stores. So ideally, in this iteration, we should be able to print 2 records. Okay. Okay. And the iteration will remain same. And now we will put a query for store information repository, find by store phone number. Okay. And we will give the phone number, let's say 5 times 5. All right. And then we'll do for each, and we'll do iteration for printing. System.out.println. Okay. And we'll say that. So these are the different methods for finding. So these are the different methods for finding. Let us do one more, that is find by ID. Okay. So I'll just copy and do the changes. That will be better. So I'll just say find by ID. Okay. And ID is my integer value. So I should be giving some int. Let's say 2. And not necessarily this value might be present. So I will just say, instead of for each, I will just say if present, then you print this value. Okay. So these many find operations we are performing here. Okay. So let's now first execute, check the database and check the results of these find queries. Then we will proceed towards counting operations. All right. So let us now execute our Spring Boot application and see what happens. Let's see the logs. So what first thing I am getting? Amazon store details. What was my first find query? Find by store name, which is Amazon, right? Second, what I am doing? I am doing find by store detail, and store detail is this, which is present in exactly same store detail in 2 stores. Okay, which is store 3 and store 4, Meesho and Myntra. All 5 fashion items are available here. All right. My next find by query is with store phone number, and number is YY. All right. So what is my YY phone number store is Flipkart, that is store number 2. And eventually when I am doing find by ID, which is 2, that is again the same query. Okay. So all results I am getting beautifully here. Everything is printed properly here. Now let us check our database, what changes have happened there. So I'm back to the database. Earlier when we executed the query, we got only 1 record because we created only 1 at that time. But now we have already created 4 records. Now let us execute this query again. Select a star from test users.store information and see what happens. Okay. I will re-execute the query and you can notice I'm getting all 4 results here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Amazon, Flipkart, Meesho and Myntra. All right. So data is persisted in the database and I am able to query the data properly. Okay. We'll see one more scenario now. So I'm back to editor and I will now put a counting for this. How can I count all the records existing in the database? So I will just again call my repository instance. So store information repository, it is actually giving a lot of methods. Count, I'll just call count. And I would want to print it. So I will enclose this thing inside system.out.println Okay, and we'll close it here. Okay, so I should get a number 4 from this. So let's see, what do I get? Let me again go ahead and execute my application. And here is the log details. All the fetching information would remain same, and after that I am getting number 4. So in database there are total number of records 4. Okay, one more thing I would like you to notice, find by id and count, these two methods I have never written inside my store information repository. So these are the default methods given by CRUD repository, and I can use it directly, no change. But whatever methods are given, and also one important method which is save. So if you notice in my store information repository, see here, I have never written save, count or find by ID. What have I written is only these three, because these three are specific to store information entity, and these specific methods will not be provided by CRUD repository. So I have written the signatures here, and the implementation is automatically taken by Spring Boot. Okay, so it's that magical. You just need to write your custom find methods here, and those implementation, you need not to worry, it will be taken care by String, and you can directly use them like this. All right, so it's that simple. I hope this part is also very clear to all of you. Okay, if you would like to delete a particular record from the database, let's say I want to say delete by ID, how would you do that? I will just again take a store information repository and will call delete. See, so many deletes are available there. I can pass the entire entity which is candidate for deletion, or I can say delete by ID. Other versions of delete are also provided. So let's say for this demonstration, I will call delete by ID, and I will pass the ID number 2. Okay, and after that again when I will call count, let's see what changes. Okay, so what did I do here? I have created 4 records, called its find and then count, and after that I have deleted ID number 2 record, and then again I am counting the record. Let's see what happens, and let's do one more call here, find by ID 2. Okay, let's now again execute our application and see what changes. Let's go back to log details. What happens? Initially, same find queries, everything is good. My count is 4. After that, if you notice, count is changed to 3. And after this count also, I have called find by ID 2. But now there is no ID with 2 exist. So the count is decreased to 3, and no more count 2 record is printed. Whereas if I will go up, here find by ID 2 was getting printed with Flipkart. Okay, let us verify this information from MySQL Workbench also. So this is my select query, select a star from test users.store information. Let me just go ahead and execute it. What am I getting? Now this time store ID 1, 3 and 4. Amazon, Meesho, Myntra, Flipkart is gone. So no Flipkart is here. All right. So I hope this demonstration and the usage of repository, pattern, Spring Data JPA with the Spring Boot and MySQL, all these things, all the configuration and all the code changes are very, very clear to all of you. And if you have any question, please ask the questions in the comment section. I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. All right. Thank you everyone for watching this session. I hope you found it useful. If you really like the session, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to remain updated with more sessions. And also I would like to request you to share it with more and more people so that everyone else will be benefited. Share this session with more and more people so that we grow together more stronger as a community. And also, I would like to mention, if you like any specific part of the session, annotate that part in the comment section so that everyone else will be benefited from that. Thank you once again. See you in the next session. Bye for now.